So I'm not a Marvel Legends super collector. The main thing I focus on is Iron Man and Iron Man related characters. And I would like to think that Iron Spider, the Spider-Man suit made by Tony Stark for Peter Parker, qualifies as an iron suit. So I had this original, like, Hasbro weird 6-inch Marvel Legends-y style Iron Spider in my collection for quite some time, and even though I did not want to pay the overpriced deluxe price for the newer anniversary Iron Spider, thankfully I didn't have to, I got it on a sale, I decided to get this one as well, and honestly, I wasn't expecting the greatest figure ever out of the new Iron Spider. I heard some people saying they were kind of disappointed with it, that it wasn't that great, because I didn't originally pre-order it. I was actually under the impression I may never get it, because I didn't want to pay the crazy price. But thankfully, a lot of other people didn't, and they marked it down. So, honestly, after getting it, and after playing around with it for a while, and after having the old one for a while, the new one is pretty snazzy, and I'm pretty happy with it. If you look closely at the thumbnail picture, which I will post again right now, he can actually stand on the spider legs. Not that great, mind you. Not that long, mind you. It's not a permanent display option, but you can, if you're patient with him, you can get him standing on the spider legs, and that is pretty great. And that's something that 100 trillion gajillion % you could have never done with the old one. So I typically don't show packages with old versus new, but because I've kind of made the windowless boxes a bit of a subject on my channel for a while, I did want to discuss the package of the new Iron Spider. It's very similar to the Renew Your Vows Spider-Man package, but it's obviously a sealed box. I actually have another copy. One of these anniversary Spider-Man figures I had to get was the Japanese Spider-Man, and it's in a very similar style box. You can see it does have some cardboard in it where it's not easy to just press into. And I mean, it has nice art. And I kind of think that the image here is a little bit more appealing than some of the others I've seen. Maybe it's just because I find the figure far more appealing. But it does have the issue of, oh, I really like this Iron Spider figure. Maybe I can just steal it. Maybe I can just tear into the box and just steal it out. Oh, tissue paper, nice. Yeah, it's not very theft-proof, so not the greatest box, and obviously because I tore it, it's not the kind of box I'm going to keep. But we're really not here for the box. We're here to compare these figures. And the old one has its charm, mostly with the paint, and that's pretty much it. But the new one is just really cool. And in my opinion, even though it's cast in metallic red, it demonstrates that Hasbro, with their pearlescent plastics for Iron Man figures, they need to go darker. Because this darker red for this Iron Spider looks really good. There's a little issue with it, but other than that, it's a nice looking plastic color. So let's take a closer look at the older one. There are different versions of this older Iron Spider. This is the shinier paint version, because he's painted fully. This is all like candy red paint. You can see the paint does kind of vary in color a little bit between the torso and the arms. Arms are a little brighter. He also has yellow paint instead of gold, which I kind of like, not gonna lie. Honestly, to tell you the truth, when I initially got this new one, I intended on selling this old one. But because I collect different figures of, iron suits and everything, and I still really like this metallic paint, I don't think I'm gonna get rid of this. I don't think I am. Because is the figure itself that good? Let's get into it. So the spider legs are very thin, very wibbly pieces of plastic. They're on these little tiny hinges with these really tiny little pins, but you can articulate them. You can articulate them. They're on ball joints at the base. They're kind of annoying to move around. They want to flop around because they're very thin and weak. They're kind of bad, but they're there. They're there. You can see the sculpt's kind of odd. He has this very bean-like, elongated, very tiny head. But I kind of dig the look of it, even though there's no possible way a human head would fit in there. Even though you do have to consider that Marvel Legends have gotten a little bigger and thicker over the years. Even though the height of it isn't thicker, you can see that the head sculpt on the new one is a lot thicker. Man, this figure just feels nice. But this old one, because it is painted in all red, There were some stuck joints, I believe, when I first got it. It's got pins exposed. The articulation's kind of primitive, because, I mean, looking at the hands, you only have a hinge, and it has a pin in it. He's got articulated fingers. That actually does mean you have no swivel at the wrist, so you can't even get him into a proper thwip. He has no waist swivel, but he does have a very borderline useless ab crunch. He's got the disc hinges at the hips, which are very gross, and even trying to like move them forward to get his leg forward, I'm struggling. Can I even pull it off? Yeah, there we go. It's kind of a click. You can see you can get the leg forward, but it's awkward and it's kind of gross. Hear that squeak? That's the paint rubbing against itself. You'd have a knee bend, and again, no ankle swivel, but you do have an up and down at the ankle, and you have the kind of awkward, like, I've always kind of thought of it as like a pin roller ankle pivot, because you can see it's almost like this circular piece that's kind of wedged into the foot, and you have a toe joint. You also have magnets at the bottom of the feet, which are kind of cool, and a bit of a reason why I kind of want to keep it now, because fun fact, I've had this figure for years, and I never realized he had magnets at the bottom of his feet. So, yeah, I might stick him to something, just as at least it's kind of pretty, with all the, red paint. I'll keep him around. Why not? Why not? I was thinking about getting rid of him, but I'll keep him around. However, he's trash compared to this thing. Because even though if you do look, the metallic red plastic is ever so slightly different on the torso compared to the limbs. Because the torso is harder plastic and the limbs are softer to accommodate the pinless joints. This thing's nice. This thing is nice. So the first thing I talked about on the old one were the legs. And the first thing I'll talk about on this are the legs. So you have a swivel and a hinge at the base. You have a swivel and a hinge at this part, not on every single section, but on this part you have a swivel and a hinge. And you have a swivel and a hinge at the tip as well. So the legs are very articulated. I do feel like they can get kind of loose, because you can see as I swivel it, you can see how it's kind of separating, because it's pinless. There's no pin in that hinge. You can kind of see how it's splitting ever so slightly. So I might have to like heat it up and try to add some thickness, or like try to squish that hinge and make it a little tighter again. But as I demonstrated in that thumbnail picture, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to just pull it off super quick filming this video. But it is doable to get him on these legs. Essentially what you do, you have to like crunch his abs, have his head looking forward. You kind of have to have him hunched over. It's funny, I just reviewed that Transformers Prime Arachnid and had a similar case of very annoying spider legs. But let's see if I can just real quick here try to pull it off. You can see it's doable. It's doable. You just have to balance everything just right. So one thing about these spider legs, they want to curl in on themselves because of just the natural shape of them. And they don't want to like sprawl out and actually, work like an actual leg. So that's pretty much the main difficulty. These legs can support the weight, but unfortunately the designs of the legs themselves just can't really support the pose of standing up like this. Maybe. You can see it takes a lot of finagling, and you can do it. See, look right there. But it's not going to last. Maybe if the legs are more rigid, if the feet were a little differently designed. But honestly, I got to give it to it. Just the fact that you can, even just for a little bit. That's something I never expected with a figure like this. And I can commend their engineering and their efforts to be able to accomplish that, because that is actually pretty cool. The figure itself is newly developed entirely, so he does have pinless joints, and I really love modern Hasbro pinless joints, because not only do they move great, but they feel great. You don't have any of that wibbliness that we started to get with Marvel Legends. They are rigid, they feel good, they feel nice, they bend well. It makes the whole figure, like just posing it, this smoother, nicer experience. It's just so fun to move him around. He's got these pretty decent butterfly joints as well. And he still has a hinge and ball joint at the head. So I kind of would prefer dumbbell joints, but honestly, having that hinge at the head does allow it to look up more, especially with spider leg poses. For accessories, the only things he has, you can see he's got a thwip hand and a fist hand. You essentially get the opposite equivalents for each hand for those. That's the only accessories you get. But honestly, I can't really think of any other accessories you would need for an Iron Spider. So I'm pretty happy with this guy. I think the gold paint looks really cool as well. It's just a nice looking figure, man. It's nice. I kind of can forgive the legs not being painted gold, given how much plastic there is there. However, I do have to say, I don't think this figure is worthy of the deluxe price point that they charged for it. The fact that you don't get a Build-A-Figure piece, it's almost like Hasbro doesn't even consider a Build-A-Figure piece as a part of the budget for Marvel Legends. While McFarlane Toys will charge $25 for a figure with a Build-A-Figure piece, whoops, trust me, he stands pretty well. I just didn't spend a lot of time on that pose. Even though McFarlane Toys accommodates for a Build-A-Figure piece in the pricing of their figures, having 25 for BAFs and then 20 for figures without BAF pieces, Hasbro, they're like, but if it has a piece, doesn't have a piece, $25. Exclusive, $28. Deluxe, $34. Like, their pricing is all over the place. They have no rhyme or logic for it whatsoever anymore. It's ridiculous. But figures are nice. They're raising the prices, and the pricing is ridiculous and stupid, and I don't understand it. But the figures are nice. Just like with Black Series, the figures are getting nice, but me personally, I just want to be even more niche with collecting them. So with Marvel Legends, I cut back even more. I used to get some MCU stuff, but I mostly focused on Iron Man as the main, and I got a few Spider-Man stuff every once in a while. But I also got some MCU stuff. I almost over-halved my MCU collection. I got rid of a lot of it. Because getting some of these new Spider-Man anniversary figures made me realize what I like about Marvel Legends are fun, posable action figures. I'm not about collecting the characters. I don't need an MCU Thor and Hawkeye and Black Widow if the figures themselves can hardly move in their trash. I'm not, and so many of them too, especially MCU, like, how many times do you just need a person in a costume? You know, when it comes to a figure like Iron Spider, this is unique for my collection. The legs are unique. The body's all new. It's a nice figure. And both of these, honestly, contribute something to my collection. I like them a lot. So yeah, I did keep this Iron Spider, and I sold off, you know, several of my MCU figures. So what? So what? This is my collection. I'm doing what I want to do with it. And me personally, I like both of these. Will I acknowledge that the old Hasbro one is trash? Yes. But it has a charm to it. It's early Marvel Legends Hasbro, and it is rocking it. I like the paint. I'm sorry. I think the paint's pretty. And just the odd charm of this weird, janky, early like 2010s Hasbro, or like late 2000s Hasbro. Let's see if I can get them in a similar pose. Let's try to get them both in a similar pose. I like playing this game with some old versus news. So let's get them in a web thwip pose, where their leg is lunging, and they are thwipping their web. Let's do that. So, oh man, the joints are so tight on this old one. So a little bit of a lunge, fist, a little bit of a web thwip. There we go. There's the old one. You can see it still can pose, but another thing too, those legs are so skinny, and the feet are even skinnier. He's got these tiny little feet. Probably should have posed him last, because I don't think he's going to be able to stand up after, me just trying to pose the new one. Yep, there we go. One little nudge and he's done. But let's get this new one in a similar pose, just so we can see how much more you can do with it. So let's lunge that leg a little bit more. We can actually turn the waist now. We can get that lunged, get the foot more adjusted. There we go. There we go. So we can see, comparing these poses, yeah, I think the new one pulls it off a little bit better, don't you? Just a little bit. Just a little bit. Man, oh man. Again, just little nudges. That's all it takes. There is definitely a balance with having these big old legs, honestly. The old one doesn't have a balance issue because of the big old legs. It has a balance issue with those twig little legs. All right. So, there we go. Old versus new on Marvel Legends Iron Spider. New one, in my opinion, is great. Get it, but not for that full price. Show Hasbro that we are not willing to pay these higher prices for these figures. Show them that they'll sell, but for the prices that we used to pay, because these price hikes are just getting ridiculous, in my opinion. And I feel like what I paid for this Iron Spider, I think it was around like, kind of like standard retail price, you know, in between 20 and 25. It's worth it. It's worth it for that. Not for over 30 bucks. Are you insane, Hasbro? I don't get it. Their pricing confuses me. I will never understand. Ever. Alrighty, guys. There we go. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments if you think I'm a psycho for wanting to keep around that old one, because yes, it is trash. This old versus new comparison was more of a roast instead of a genuine comparison. We all know the winner here. We all can tell the winner. Alrighty, there we go. Thank you guys so much for watching. Special shout out to the patrons at Patreon as well. Thank you all so much for your continued support. Alrighty, there we go. Man, you had 5 seconds left. You had 5 seconds left, buddy. Come on. Come on. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a good one, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.